For years, I had a long list of people to blame for my lack of success. It was the government's fault because of taxes, and it was the economy's fault for being slow. It was my boss's fault for not appreciating me. This list felt good. It protected me from failure, but it kept me powerless. I was letting my one life slip by while I was busy blaming everyone else. Then one day, my mentor told me something so simple and so jarring that it forced me to fire everyone on my blame list. This is the story of that day, the day I took my power back. Most people maintain a mental list of reasons why their life is not what they want it to be. This list often feels like a necessary defense, a way to explain the gap between their ambitions and their reality. But what if that list, the one you turn to for justification, is not a shield, but a cage? The bars of this cage are forged from explanations and excuses, each one solidifying your position inside, preventing any real movement. It's a comfortable prison, but a prison nonetheless. For a young Jim Rohn, this was not just a concept, it was his daily reality. He was a man armed with a long and well-rehearsed catalog of complaints. He knew exactly who and what was responsible for his lack of progress. He would tell anyone who would listen that he couldn't get ahead because his taxes were just too high. The government, in his view, was an insurmountable obstacle designed to keep the little guy down. He also blamed the national economy, pointing to its sluggish performance as the primary reason for his stagnant wages. He saw himself as a victim of large, impersonal forces far beyond his control. On a more personal level, he blamed his boss, a person he was sure failed to recognize his true talent and potential. He blamed his unappreciative relatives who, he felt, offered no support. Every external factor was put on trial, and in Rohn's mind, they were all found guilty. This act of pointing fingers provided a powerful, soothing relief. This blaming felt good in the moment. Each excuse acted as a buffer, protecting his ego from the uncomfortable truth of his own shortcomings. It was easier to believe that powerful external systems were aligned against him than to admit he might not be doing everything he could. This created a feeling of short-term comfort, a sense of validation in his own perceived victimhood. He could join others in complaining, finding solidarity in shared grievances. This shared narrative made his position feel normal and justified. However, this comfort came with an extremely high and hidden price. While he was busy perfecting his list of complaints and assigning fault, his life was quietly slipping by. Weeks turned into months, and months turned into years with no meaningful change. He was entirely powerless to alter his course because he had convinced himself that the steering wheel was in someone else's hands. The fundamental problem with blame is that it externalizes control. When you decide the problem is out there, you automatically place the solution out there as well. If high taxes are the issue, then the only solution is for the government to lower them. If a slow economy is the problem, you must wait for it to improve on its own. If your boss is the problem, you must wait for them to be replaced or to suddenly change their personality. This mindset puts you in a passive position, a waiting game that you are guaranteed to lose. Real progress requires action, but you cannot act on things you do not control. By giving away the responsibility for the problem, you simultaneously give away the power to create the solution. This waiting game is the ultimate trap of a blame-focused life. It ensures that no significant forward momentum is ever achieved. The energy that could be spent on learning a new skill, improving work habits, or building better relationships is instead spent on watching, waiting, and complaining. It's a form of self-imposed paralysis. Most people willingly choose this path because the alternative is fundamentally uncomfortable. Facing your own faults, admitting your own ignorance, or acknowledging your own laziness is a painful process. It requires humility and a significant amount of courage. Blame, by contrast, is the easier, more traveled road. It requires nothing from you except a pointed finger. So why do so many people select the comfort of blaming others over the power of taking control? The reason is simple. It absolves them from the difficult, often frustrating work of personal change. It is an escape from accountability. If your lack of success is someone else's fault, then you are not obligated to do the hard work of reading books, attending seminars, or practicing new disciplines. You are off the hook. Jim Rohn's biggest mistake, the error in thinking that kept him stuck for 6 long years, was exactly this. He traded his personal power, his ability to learn, grow, and change for the hollow comfort of having a good excuse. He preferred being a victim with a valid story to being a creator with a difficult task ahead. This deeply ingrained habit of thought had become his identity, but it was an identity that was about to be challenged in a confrontation that would force him to abandon this stagnant yet comfortable way of thinking. What happens when your entire worldview, a structure you have spent years building and reinforcing, is shattered by a single simple sentence? For a 25-year-old Jim Rohn, this was not a hypothetical question. It was the moment his life truly began. The event that set this profound change in motion was his first serious meeting with his future mentor, the influential businessman Earl Schoaf. Rohn came to this meeting prepared. He had his story straight and his evidence in order. Expecting to receive new business strategies, clever sales techniques, or perhaps a dose of professional sympathy, Rohn laid out a detailed and well-rehearsed case for why his life was not working out. He was not there to confess fault. He was there to present a problem for which he sought an external solution. He carefully articulated his list of grievances, the same list he had been using to comfort himself for years. He explained that he was a hard worker who just couldn't get a break. He pointed to the government and the burden of high taxes, presenting them as an impassable barrier to accumulating wealth. He detailed the sluggishness of the national economy, framing it as a vast force that was actively suppressing his opportunities. He then brought the blame closer to home, describing his unappreciative boss who failed to see his potential and his relatives who offered no meaningful support. He wasn't just complaining, he was building a case, brick by brick, to prove that his lack of success was not his fault. He was waiting for Mr. Schaff to nod in agreement to validate his position and then offer a clever way to navigate these external obstacles. He wanted a map to get around the problems, not a mirror to look at himself. Instead of interrupting or immediately offering advice, Mr. Schaff did something far more unsettling. He listened. He listened patiently and attentively, without judgment or interjection, as Rohn went through his entire catalog of misfortunes. When Rohn finally finished, there was a quiet moment. For Rohn, who was anticipating a quick and validating response, this silence felt like an eternity. In that quiet, all of his justifications and excuses seemed to hang in the air, suddenly sounding hollow and weak without the immediate reinforcement he expected. Schaff did not reach for a notepad to outline a complex 10-step plan. He did not offer a secret technique for success or a platitude about tough times. He offered something simpler, more direct, and, in its honesty, far more brutal. He simply looked at the young, frustrated man sitting before him. Then, he spoke the 4 words that would echo through the rest of Jim Rohn's life, becoming the cornerstone of his entire philosophy. He said plainly and without malice, "Jim, the problem is you." The statement landed with incredible force. It was not delivered as an attack or an insult. It was stated as an observation, a fundamental truth that had, until that moment, been invisible to Rohn. It cut through every layer of defense, every excuse, every carefully constructed rationalization he had ever built. It was a direct hit on the very foundation of his worldview. All the energy he had put into blaming the government, the economy, and the people around him had been misdirected. The true source of his frustration was sitting right there in the chair. This simple sentence was a jarring and immediate shift in perspective. His initial reaction was one of surprise, a shock that someone would so bluntly dismiss his entire narrative. It would have been easy to become defensive or angry, but the simple authority with which Schaff spoke made the statement impossible to ignore. In that moment, Rohn began to see his life through a new lens. He mentally scrolled back through his history of failures, his financial struggles, and his disappointments. He realized that the government changed, economies fluctuated, and bosses came and went, but there was one constant in every single one of his personal setbacks. He was the common denominator. The problem wasn't a collection of disparate external issues, it was a single internal one. This realization led him to ask a new question. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" he began to ask, "What is it about me that is creating this result?" To soften the blow and provide a path forward, Schaff then gave him the essential context for this profound statement. He explained, "You cannot change the circumstances, the seasons, or the wind, but you can change yourself. That is something you have charge of." This clarification was vital. It shifted the focus from guilt to power. Schaff wasn't telling Rohn to feel bad about his past failures. He was pointing out the only variable he had the power to control in the future. He couldn't lobby for lower taxes tomorrow or single-handedly fix the economy, but he could start the process of changing himself immediately. So how did a simple 4-word statement completely alter the course of Rohn's life? It worked because it forced him to stop looking outward for blame and start looking inward for solutions. It was the end of the waiting game. The power was no longer in the hands of politicians, economists, or managers. The power was in his own hands. He recognized that if he was the problem, he could also be the solution. This was not just a turning point in a career. It was a complete demolition of an old identity. An identity built on victimhood and excuses could not survive this new truth. The ground had to be cleared completely to make way for a new foundation, a foundation built squarely upon the bedrock of unshakable personal. After being told the problem is you, the immediate question becomes, what is the first practical step? The path forward is not a small adjustment, but a radical act of personal liberation. It is the moment you stop analyzing the chains and decide to break them. For Jim Rohn, the weight of that simple truth from Mr. Schaff demanded an equally powerful response. He understood that a gradual change wouldn't work. His old habits of thought were too deeply ingrained. He needed a clean break, a single decision that would fundamentally alter his relationship with his own past and future. It was a conscious choice to completely overhaul the operating system of his mind, moving from a program of finding fault to one of finding solutions. This first step wasn't about learning a new technique. It was about performing a mental exorcism to cast out the demons of blame that had haunted him for years. This decision marked the beginning of his true education and success, an education that started not with a new book, but with a new and profound personal commitment. The act itself was simple in its conception, but massive in its implications for his life. That very day, Rohn made a decision. He mentally gathered every person, every institution, and every circumstance that resided on his well-established blame list. It was a comprehensive inventory of every excuse he had ever used to justify his lack of progress. In his mind's eye, he saw the government, an entity he had long accused of stealing his potential through excessive taxes. He pictured the national economy, a great and faceless force he had used as a reason for his stagnant financial situation. He then turned to his immediate circle, envisioning the relatives who offered him doubt instead of encouragement, whose pessimism he allowed to infect his own outlook. He added his company's policies to the pile, which he had frequently cited as restrictive and unfair. Finally, he included a general category for everyone who had ever, in his perception, wronged him or failed to provide the help he felt he deserved. He placed them all together in one mental space, acknowledging each one, not as a valid reason, but as a crutch he had chosen to lean on. It was a complete and honest accounting of his own intellectual laziness. He then took a decisive action. He fired them all. This was not a literal act. He did not write angry letters to the government or sever ties with his family. The act was entirely internal, which is precisely what gave it so much power. To fire them all meant he was revoking their authority over his emotional and financial state. He was officially terminating their employment as the managers of his life. They were no longer responsible for his results, his happiness, or his future. This mental declaration was a profound statement of independence. He would no longer allow their actions or even the existence of these external forces to determine his reactions. His internal world was now under new management, his own. He was taking back the immense amount of power he had willingly given away for so many years. This decision was the practical application of the lesson that he, and he alone, was the problem, and therefore also the solution. The implications of this mental shift were immediate and practical. Firing the government meant he made a personal vow to stop complaining about taxes. He accepted that taxes were a part of the economic system, a non-negotiable reality. Instead of wasting energy resenting this fact, he refocused that energy entirely on a new goal, increasing his own value in the marketplace. He asked himself, how can I become so valuable and earn so much income that what I pay in taxes becomes an insignificant fraction of my overall wealth? The problem was no longer the tax rate. The problem was his income. One of those things he could not control and the other he could. He chose to focus on his income. He started studying, working harder, and seeking promotions and new opportunities. The external complaint was replaced by an internal mission for growth. Similarly, firing the economy meant he stopped using downturns, recessions, or slow growth as an excuse for his own lack of financial progress. He recognized that he could not personally control the nation's gross domestic product or the stock market's performance. Waiting for perfect economic conditions was a recipe for a lifetime of inaction. So he fired the economy from its role as his personal gatekeeper. Instead, he committed himself to learning skills that were so valuable they would be in demand in any economic condition. Whether the market was booming or busting, he wanted to be a person companies and customers needed. This shifted his focus from being a passive victim of economic tides to an active creator of his own economic security. He started reading more books, attending seminars, and mastering his craft. His success would no longer be dependent on the financial weather, but on the strength of his own abilities. This act reclaimed the vast reservoir of mental and emotional energy that he had previously wasted on complaining, worrying, and feeling resentful. Every minute spent stewing over a politician's decision or a negative news report about the economy was a minute not spent improving himself. Complaining is an exhausting, circular activity that produces no forward momentum. It is a heavy psychological tax you voluntarily pay every single day. By firing his blame list, Rohn freed up all of that wasted capital. That newfound energy could now be redirected toward productive personal action. It was fuel for his new mission of self-development. He had more time to read, more mental clarity to focus on his work, and more emotional resilience to handle setbacks without searching for someone else to blame. He was no longer a spectator in his own life. He was now the primary actor on the stage. So what does it truly mean to fire everyone on your blame list? It means you make a conscious and final decision to stop letting external factors be the reason for your internal state and personal results. It is the declaration that your peace of mind, your motivation, and your bank account are no longer at the mercy of outside events or other people's behavior. It is the ultimate act of reclaiming ownership. You accept that while you cannot control the wind, you are solely responsible for adjusting your own sails. This is the definition of adulthood. It is not an age you reach, but a decision you make. It is the precise moment you stop waiting for your parents, the government, or some other savior to rescue you, and you finally take firm command of your own ship, ready to navigate whatever waters lie ahead. When most people hear the phrase, take responsibility, their mind immediately jumps to concepts of guilt and fault. It feels heavy, like a burden you are being asked to carry for something that went wrong. It sounds like an admission of failure, a self-imposed sentence for past mistakes. This common reaction is a fundamental misunderstanding of the concept's true power. Responsibility, when correctly understood, is not a chain that ties you to the past. It is the key that unlocks your future. It's not about accepting blame, it's about claiming power. This distinction is not just a minor detail in semantics. It is the most critical shift in perspective you can make if you want to change the direction of your life. It moves you from being a defendant in the courtroom of your past to being the architect of your future. True responsibility is not a burden. It is a source of immense strength. Jim Rohn clarifies that the secret to understanding this is found directly within the word itself. If you break it down, you discover its core meaning, responsibility. It is about your ability to respond. This simple reframing changes everything. It is not a backward-looking assessment of who is at fault for a situation. Instead, it is a forward-looking recognition of your own power to act. It has nothing to do with what has already happened and everything to do with what you are going to do next. It is not an emotional weight, but a practical capability. This is not just a clever play on words. It is a profound insight into the mechanics of personal power. The entire concept hinges on this understanding. It is not about what has been done to you, but about what you will choose to do now. This is a direct contrast to the emotion of guilt. Guilt is an entirely backward-looking emotion. Its entire function is to keep your attention locked on what went wrong in the past. It forces you to mentally replay mistakes, injustices, and failures. It is a state of being stuck, looping endlessly over events that can no longer be changed. When you operate from a place of guilt, you are preoccupied with assigning blame either to yourself or to others. You become a judge of past actions, a role that offers no path forward. Guilt is an anchor that holds you in place, preventing you from sailing toward a new destination. It can be a significant impediment to any real progress because a mind focused on the past cannot effectively create a better future. It feels productive, as if you are analyzing the problem, but it often leads to a state of inaction and helplessness, leaving you paralyzed by regret. Responsibility, in sharp contrast, is a forward-looking power. It is not concerned with the cause of a situation, only with the response to it. It does not ask, whose fault is this? It asks, what will my response be? This focus is absolute and immediate. It directs all of your mental and emotional energy toward the present moment and the actions you can take right now. The origin of the problem becomes irrelevant in the face of your ability to choose how you will deal with it. This forward-looking approach is active and creative. It assumes that no matter what the circumstances are, you possess the capacity to generate a constructive response. It turns challenges from roadblocks into opportunities for growth. It doesn't deny that bad things happen. It simply asserts that your power lies in how you react to them. Consider a simple but common scenario. Someone treats you poorly at work or in your personal life. The guilty mindset immediately obsesses over the injustice of the situation. It asks, how could they do that to me? That was so unfair. The mind then replays the event, gathering evidence of the wrongdoing and building a case for its own victimhood. This process generates feelings of anger, resentment, and helplessness. It is a passive state that accepts the negative emotional impact of the event. The responsible mindset, however, operates from a completely different place. It acknowledges the event, but immediately asks a different question. How will I respond to this to protect my peace and progress? It focuses on action. The responsible response might be to set a clear boundary, to have a direct conversation, or to consciously choose to let go of the offense to preserve one's own mental energy. The focus shifts from the other person's action to your own reaction. Guilt is fundamentally passive. It accepts a negative state as a final outcome. It allows an external event to dictate your internal emotional condition. You were wronged, and therefore you feel bad. The equation is simple and leaves you powerless. Responsibility, on the other hand, is active. It seeks to create a positive outcome from any circumstance. It views every situation, positive or negative, as raw material from which you can build something better. It is the act of taking that raw material of an injustice and deciding to build resilience, wisdom, or peace from it. This is the difference between being a passive recipient of life's events and an active participant in creating your life's experience. It is the difference between being a thermostat, which simply reflects the temperature of the room, and a thermometer. This crucial shift in thinking immediately frees you from the heavy emotional weight of things you cannot control. You cannot control the past, it is done. You cannot control the decisions and actions of other people. Wasting emotional energy trying to manage these things is a recipe for constant frustration. By focusing only on your response, you place your attention squarely on the one and only thing in the universe you have absolute control over, your own choices and actions moving forward. This is incredibly liberating. It means that your sense of well-being is no longer dependent on the world behaving exactly as you wish. Your power is no longer contingent on other people treating you fairly. Your internal state becomes your own sovereign territory, and you decide what happens there. So, what is the ultimate difference between being responsible and feeling guilty? Guilt is a prison built from the bricks of your past, designed to keep you locked in a cycle of regret and blame. Responsibility is the key to creating your future, a tool that allows you to build a new outcome regardless of what happened before. Guilt is about fault. Responsibility is about power. Guilt is about yesterday. Responsibility is about now. Embracing this distinction is the defining characteristic that separates those who are shaped and defined by their circumstances from those who define themselves by their choices. It is the line that divides a life of reaction from a life of creation. A responsible life is not just a single decision made in a moment of clarity. It is a structure that you must build and maintain day by day. Making the choice to take control is the essential first step, but without a framework to support that choice, it will eventually crumble under the weight of old habits and external pressures. Jim Rohn argues that once you have fired everyone on your blame list and reclaimed your personal power, you need a blueprint for what to do next. He outlines 4 essential pillars that form the foundation for a life of meaningful achievement. These pillars are not abstract theories, they are practical and interconnected principles that, when applied together, create an unshakable structure for success. Each one supports the others. And the strength of your new life depends entirely on the strength of this foundation. Understanding and implementing this framework is what separates a temporary emotional high from a permanent life-altering transformation. It is the architectural plan for building a new self. The first and most fundamental pillar is a profound mindset shift. This is the starting point from which all else flows. The natural human tendency is to look outward for comfort and to wish for problems to disappear. Rohn observed that most people spend their lives hoping for less difficulty. They wish for lower taxes, a better economy, less demanding work, or more understanding people. This entire approach is fundamentally flawed because it places the focus on things you cannot control. The mindset shift turns this entire equation on its head. As Rohn famously said, "Don't wish it were easier, wish you were better." This simple statement contains a universe of wisdom. It demands that you redirect all the energy you once spent on wishing and complaining and invest it into your own capacity for growth. The goal is no longer to find an easier path, but to become a stronger traveler, capable of navigating any path, no matter how difficult. This focus on internal growth over external ease is the primary characteristic of a responsible person. It is an acceptance that the size of your success is determined by the size of you, not the size of your problems. The second pillar is a commitment to continuous self-education. Once your mindset is focused on becoming better, the next logical question is how. The answer is found in the relentless pursuit of knowledge. Rohn was adamant on this point, stating, "Your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development." This creates a direct and undeniable link between learning and achievement. It suggests that your income, your relationships, and your overall quality of life are a direct reflection of the investment you make in yourself. To illustrate this, Rohn often contrasted the habits of successful and unsuccessful people, pointing out that successful people tend to have large libraries while others have big screen TVs. This is less a judgment on entertainment, but a stark observation about priorities. One choice leads to active growth and the expansion of knowledge, while the other leads to passive consumption. Committing to self-education means choosing the library over the television on a consistent basis. It means reading books that challenge your thinking, listening to audio programs during your commute, and attending seminars that teach you new skills. It is about understanding that your mind is your greatest asset, and it must be constantly fed and developed. Formal education gets you a job, but self-education makes you a fortune. These first 2 pillars, while simple to understand, are not easy to implement. They require a significant amount of effort. And this creates a point of tension for most people. It is far easier to sit on the couch and wish for a better economy than it is to pick up a difficult book on economics and actually learn how it works. It is more comfortable to relax after a long day of work than it is to practice a new skill that could advance your career. This is the friction point where most people fall back into their old patterns. The path of personal responsibility is the path of greater resistance. The easy road is paved with blame, excuses, and passive entertainment. The responsible road is steep and demands persistent effort. Choosing to read the book, attend the seminar, or practice the skill when you don't feel like it is the very definition of building character. The willingness to push through this discomfort is what activates the power of the first two pillars and makes the next ones possible. The third pillar is disciplined action. A growth mindset and a library full of books are worthless without consistent application. Discipline is the engine that converts your knowledge and potential into tangible results in the real world. It is the bridge that connects your grand aspirations with your daily habits. Without it, your goals remain nothing more than fantasies. Rohn presented a clear and unavoidable choice when he warned, we must all suffer one of two pains, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. There is no third option. You either choose the proactive short-term discomfort of doing the hard things you need to do, or you will inevitably face the chronic long-term ache of looking back on your life with disappointment. The pain of discipline is the small sacrifice of waking up an hour earlier to work on your primary goal. The pain of regret is the deep sorrow of realizing you wasted years of mornings. The pain of discipline is the focused effort of saving and investing money each month. The pain of regret is the financial stress of reaching old age with nothing to show for it. Discipline is the intelligent and conscious choice to pay the smaller price now to avoid paying the unbearable one later. The fourth and final pillar is taking control of your direction. A responsible life is not a life that is lived by accident. It is a life that is deliberately designed. This pillar is about setting a clear destination and making conscious choices to move toward it. Many people feel overwhelmed by their long-term goals, and this feeling can lead to inaction. Rohn addressed this by explaining, you cannot change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction overnight. This insight is incredibly empowering. You may not be able to become a millionaire or a master of your craft by tomorrow morning, but you can, in this very moment, make a decision that turns you in that direction. You can change your direction by buying the first book on investing. You can change your direction by writing the first paragraph of your business plan. You can change your direction by making the first healthy meal. The power lies not in arriving at the destination instantly, but in having the courage to set the rudder of your ship toward the harbor you desire and starting the journey today. You are the one who sets the destination. These four pillars do not operate in isolation. They are deeply interconnected and work together as a single cohesive system. Your mindset shift from wishing for ease to wishing to be better creates the internal motivation to pursue continuous self-education. The knowledge you gain from that self-education informs your plan and gives you the tools you need for disciplined action. And your disciplined actions, repeated daily, are what allow you to take control of your direction, moving you steadily toward your chosen goals. Each pillar reinforces the others, creating a powerful upward spiral of personal growth and achievements. So, what are the four pillars that successful people use to build a responsible life? A growth mindset, relentless self-education, disciplined action, and clear direction. Lacking even one of these pillars will cause the entire structure of your success to become unstable and eventually collapse. You have decided to be responsible, and you understand the pillars required to support that decision. You have shifted your mindset, committed to self-education, embraced discipline, and taken control of your direction. But a critical question remains, how can you be sure you are truly living it and not just pretending? How do you distinguish between a genuine transformation and a temporary burst of inspiration that will fade in a few weeks? Many people convince themselves they have changed because they feel motivated, but feelings are fleeting. True change is not a feeling. It is a fact demonstrated by behavior. The proof of responsibility is not found in your thoughts, your declarations, or your neatly written goals. It is found exclusively in your daily actions. To measure this, Jim Rohn provides a simple, practical test, a way to move your commitment from the abstract realm of intention into the concrete world of results. This moves you from someone who wants to change to someone who is actively changing. It is a litmus test for your new life. The test begins with a simple action. Create a plan. Rohn suggests taking out a piece of paper or starting a document and titling it, My New Life Plan. The power of this step is not in creating a complex or perfect plan. The power is in the act of planning itself. It is a declaration that you are now being deliberate about your life, not just letting it happen to you. Within this document, you must consistently answer 3 questions that will guide your actions. These questions are designed to be simple, direct, and focused on immediate implementation. They transform the grand and often intimidating idea of taking responsibility into a series of small, manageable tasks. The purpose is to build momentum through activity, proving to yourself through evidence that you are serious about this commitment. This plan becomes your personal guide, a tool to keep you focused on what you can control right now, today. Its value is measured not by its elegance, but by how often you use it to direct your efforts. It is the beginning of a structured approach to translate your decision into reality. The first question you must answer is, what could I do? This question is specifically designed to force you out of a passive mindset and into an active one. It is not about vague ambitions like, I want to be healthier or I want to be wealthier. It demands that you think about immediate, tangible actions you can start performing today. The question pushes you to brainstorm concrete behaviors. Answering this question shifts your focus from what you wish would happen to what you can make happen. For example, instead of a vague goal of getting in shape, a good answer would be, I could go for a 20-minute walk after dinner, or I could replace the soda I drink at lunch with water. Rohn advised starting with just one or two of these small disciplines. Success is not built by overhauling your entire life overnight. It is built by practicing a few simple disciplines every single day. The point is to start a new habit, no matter how small, to begin generating a record of success. Answering this question consistently provides a list of things you can immediately implement to drive real change forward. The second question is, what could I read? This question directly commits you to the pillar of continuous self-education. It is an acknowledgement that you do not currently have all the knowledge you need to solve your problems or achieve your goals. This question forces you to be specific about your learning. It is not enough to say, I should read more, yet you must identify the specific book that will give you the knowledge you need right now. If you are struggling with your finances, the answer is not a generic commitment to reading. It is identifying a specific, well-regarded book on personal finance or investing. If you want to improve your leadership skills, the answer is finding a book written by a respected leader in your field. This question turns your library into a It highlights the importance of seeking out knowledge as an active strategy for personal development, not just a passive hobby. Answering this question ensures that your growth is targeted, intentional, and directly related to the challenges you face and the person you want to become. It turns self-education from an idea into a scheduled activity. The third question you must answer is, who could I ask? This question is a powerful exercise in humility and strategic thinking. It pushes you to seek mentorship and guidance, forcing you to acknowledge that you do not have all the answers. In a culture that often celebrates the lone genius, admitting you need help and actively seeking it is a sign of profound strength and intelligence. It recognizes that the fastest way to learn is to find someone who has already achieved the success you desire and ask for their advice. The answer to this question should be as specific as possible. It is not about feeling a general need for a mentor. It is about identifying a specific individual or type of individual you can approach. It could be, I could ask my supervisor about how she managed a difficult project, or I could reach out to a local business owner for a 15-minute conversation about their journey. This question builds a bridge between you and the experience of others, allowing you to learn from their successes and their mistakes, saving you valuable time and preventing avoidable errors. The real test, however, is not in answering these questions once. The tension lies entirely in consistency. It is very easy to sit down for an hour, fill out your new life plan, and feel a surge of motivation. The difficult part is to live by the answers you provide day after day, especially when the initial excitement fades. It is hard to go for that walk when you are tired. It is hard to read those 10 pages when a mindless television show seems more appealing. It is hard to risk rejection by asking someone for guidance. This is the point where most people fail. They mistake the plan for the action. True responsibility is measured by your calendar and your daily habits, not by the elegance of your intentions written on a page. Your new life is not built in the moment you write the plan. It is built in all the moments you choose to follow it. This daily choice, this quiet commitment, is the substance of a responsible life. So how can you tell if you are truly taking responsibility or simply pretending? The answer is to look at the evidence. Look at your actions over the last week. Are you consistently doing, reading, and asking? The proof is in your behavior. The person who is truly responsible has a record of consistent, positive actions, no matter how small. They have read 70 pages of a good book this week. They have gone for 4 walks. They have sent 1 email seeking advice. The person who is pretending has a great plan and a long list of excuses for why they haven't followed it yet. Your daily habits are the ultimate proof of your commitment and your character. As Jim Rohn said, motivation is what gets you started. Habit is what keeps you going. The initial decision provides the spark, but it is the unwavering practice of new habits that builds the fire of a successful and responsible life. Ultimately, you stand at a fork in the road. One path is easy and paved with excuses, a road that offers comfort but leads to regret. The other path is difficult and requires discipline, but it leads to freedom. Your future is not something that simply happens to you. It is property you must claim and then build with your own hands. You can make the powerful decision today to take 100% responsibility for your life. As Jim Rohn said, you cannot change the circumstances, the seasons, or the wind, but you can change yourself. That is something you have charge of.